Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to this interview for the recently released book, Poems from the Heart, published by Radha's Publishing House. And today I have the absolute honor of interviewing Radha herself, who has been the leader and the publisher of this book, who is also one of the poets in this book. And I myself am Care, your host. Welcome, Radha.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to take a moment just to read your bio, and then from there we'll get started on talking about the beauty and the magic of poetry. Radhaa Nilia is a distinguished publishing priestess, excelling in transforming aspiring writers into successful authors. As the visionary founder of Radha's Publishing House, she orchestrates sacred writing environments that enable authors to unleash their inner genius and bring their stories to life. Specializing in collaborative books, Radha's Publishing House unites authors from around the globe, fostering a rich, diverse literary community. Radha's leadership has propelled multiple best-selling books, providing comprehensive support in visibility, publicity, and book signings. Beyond her publishing achievements, Radha established the Goddess Codes Academy, a transformative platform offering courses and programs dedicated to exploring the divine feminine archetypes. The Academy empowers women by helping them connect with their inner strength and wisdom through immersive learning experiences. Radha recently unified the Academy and the Publishing House under the Goddess Codes Collective, creating a collaborative space for women to connect, share experiences, and support each other's personal and professional growth. Radha is a passionate, lifelong learner and teacher, committed to helping people rediscover their true selves. She believes in the power of every unique story and dedicates herself to helping individuals find their voice and share their narrative with the world. Through events, workshops, and a rich array of online resources, Radha continues to uplift and empower women globally. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure. This is so much fun. We get to talk about my favorite thing, poetry.
So why don't you share a little bit about how you fell in love with poetry?
Oh my goodness. Well, I was just visiting my dad maybe a month or couple months ago, and he pulled out some boxes, and I had an old poem in there. Like I had like a little poetry book that I made with little drawings and stuff like that. And I was kind of complaining in my book about I was kind of upset about something in my life, so I created art out of it. But poetry, something I think that's helped me get through a lot in my life. Like even as a youngster, it just was natural to have poetry because it's shorter, it's sweet, and it makes sense to my brain. And I just feel like poetry is that one unifying thing throughout my entire life that makes so much sense. And even when things don't make sense, you can make a beautiful poem out of it and it suddenly makes sense. So I love poetry. I feel like it's so good for the heart, for the mind, for the soul, and it enriches us in so many ways. And I love seeing how everyone has their own style of putting things together. Nobody is exactly the same. Some people love haikus, some people like this short, kind of curt way of doing it, some like a long, elaborate poems. And but it doesn't matter because it's all beautiful, and it doesn't always have to make a lot of sense to the reader. It makes sense to the person who puts it together, and it touches our hearts, I think.
Oh, it absolutely does. And on that note, thank you for taking your love of poetry and transforming it into poems from the heart.
Goodness, it's been a journey, right? I mean, we've been doing this for a while now, and it's been so much fun to get to know everybody and to come together. And, it's been so beautiful. Our little gatherings and author incubator sessions have been, they always make my heart feel more expanded and whole than before. That's one thing I can say, and that's because of all of you. It's just so beautiful to share and be vulnerable and to just love on each other and to support each other. And I think that's something we really could use in the world right now. So
Right there with you. We definitely need just a little bit more love and to bring love back in and just to let like the Care Bear stare come out a little bit more.
Care Bears, the rainbow hearts.
Exactly. And what would you say was the inspiration behind creating Poems from the Heart? Because most of the books that you had created prior that were collaborative books are more chapter and story oriented. So what was the inspiration for this book?
Oh my goodness. I I really wanted to have I just wanted to have poets from around the world come together, and I just wanted us to all come together and share different parts of our heart. Like I really feel like it's a very challenging time in the world for us to connect with our hearts. And even for me, it can be challenging when you see what's going on. You feel all kinds of ways, and I just think it's important to come back to our hearts, and even if it is anger, even if it is pain, even if it is being disgruntled, in a poem, it's still a really healthy way of handling life and handling stress, and but also the joyful things and the beautiful things that we don't always get to celebrate, because sometimes I feel like we're at a place where sometimes there's that feeling. I'll just speak for myself, almost of just a tinge of guilt of being happy, right? Or joyful, or celebrate, or like celebrating, like why, you know, with everything going on, it could feel a little indulgent. So I feel like really channeling those really intense feelings into our poetry, it just seems so right. And I know I benefit from writing poetry, and I feel everybody does. When I read the poems, and they're so prolific, everybody's poetry, and so different and unique. And I feel like I see the poet. I feel like I can understand somebody. It's like a language. You just understand each other, and we don't have to over explain. We just get it. And sometimes we just need to just feel like somebody gets us, and sometimes we need to just get others, and it's just a language of the heart. And so I just felt it's time for a renaissance of poetry, and it's been in my heart to do for some time, getting it off the ground, finding the right people that were spread across the lands in the ways I imagined. I had to kind of put that radar out there, and it did happen. We have poets all over the world, which is so cool. And it's just our little poetic family here.
It is so cool. It's amazing to see how many different beings and how different as well we all are. But then in the end, we're all together for the same reason and all together to bring together what it is in our heart. And then again, what's in our heart is completely different, yet it all ties together. And the beauty of the book, what I find having looked through it, is there might not be a poem right now that speaks to me, but possibly in the future it speaks to me, but it might be speaking to somebody else right now. And that's the power and the magic of poetry. And what I'm also realizing for myself too is there's such a synchronicity between poetry and music. So
Oh, yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Yeah, it's kind of even like the lyrics. Actually, Emmanuel, his poetry was music. So he just kind of downshifted into the poetry, but it was already like a song. So yeah, I love that. And I feel the musical realm opening up too, yeah, through this project. So that's really interesting that you said that, because I didn't consciously really think about that, but that's, yeah, it's beautiful.
It's something that when there's a few poems that have come through me that I reread them and I realized, because I've been singing like non-trained but on my own for a lot of my life. And one of them I found myself singing it and I realized, I was like, this isn't a poem. This is a song. So
Oh,
it's very interesting.
I actually wrote a song too from a poem that I didn't use in the book. And I will definitely share that later because I'm just playing. I'm kind of like giving myself permission to play. And I think, poetry is that permission. We get so uptight sometimes with life, and also with the chapters, like it's exciting to do the books with the chapters, but we usually we have an editor, and it gets a little bit more uptight the way that we process things. I mean, it's not, I shouldn't say that, but we go through the editing process, right? So it's a whole nother process that we didn't really have to go through. We kind of just curated our poetry, and some people had their poetry ready, and so then we just get to have more fun, I think, in some ways. And it feels a little bit lighter too. So
I
yeah.
know that's something that a few people who I've talked to, and also myself included, there was a lot of people who really liked that the poems weren't edited, that it got to stay as the poetry from the heart of the being, which is something that I find is a very rare thing, especially in the publishing world too. So thank you for doing that.
So if you read the book and you're like, what's going on here? I mean, we asked everybody to clean it up as much as possible, but we really wanted to be true. And there's some poems that are kind of like really wild and even weird and interesting. And that's kind of how they're supposed to be. So I think it's okay, because our brain sometimes needs to have different patterning. Like when we read something that doesn't always make sense, it just kind of helps our brain kind of go into a different patterning. I don't know. For me as a creative, um, I like when I go, huh, like, huh, because it's not a bad huh. It's a, huh, you're making me think, what's that about? It's a good thing.
Activating new neurons in a completely different way of thinking. Oh, amazing. And what do you feel for you within the Poems from the Heart incubation sessions? What do you feel for you was the most rewarding aspect of it?
Oh my goodness, just being with all of you, we had different time zones, so that was a major issue, because we had Asia, we had Europe, and so there was some time zone issues, but just being present with you guys, it was so sweet, it was so beautiful. It really was being in the presence of divine beings. It was wonderful, and just everybody sharing where they are in the process, and just I just think sharing together. It was a lot of fun. It felt like a really nice community.
I agree with
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. And I feel like there's some deep connections that have been rooted and seeded that are just here to continue to blossom.
Yes, 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 yes. That's the
And
juicy part.
I find that that's one of the juicy things of when you get to do collaborative projects, is it's not just the work that you're putting out, it's also the connection that you're creating.
So true. I know. And there was some I witnessed some amazing blossoming in the process. And I know that, you showed up and really helped and shared, and I really appreciated that as well. And I think it was so exciting to see certain poets really bloom into parts that maybe they didn't think was possible, with being visible. And so that piece was like, yeah, you're gonna press against resistance, and we did at certain times, but I just think, the holding that space, and we kind of held it together, and then we got to see those blossoming bloom. It was just so beautiful to witness after. So I find that the breakthroughs are so exciting, and often all breakthroughs come from breakdowns. So that's also part of the process, is like you know, we're gonna have those like tense little moments of resistance, and then that breakthrough, it's so worth it because that's something that the poets get to keep forever. You know, when they did their interviews with you, um and they got that nurturing to be able to be visible, that was a big piece of it, you know, like sharing your work with the world. Like, you know, so many people are closet poets, and we got to come out and share in a bigger way that for some of the poets was more challenging. And so that was exciting, actually.
It really was. It was for myself personally, it was also a new experience in different ways. And it was a new experience in hosting. And I've held space for many years for different things, but hosting and holding space in that way. And it was so rewarding, particularly like with everybody in the conversations that I've had, but witnessing those breakthroughs. And for myself, it was just holding the space and what was needed in that moment. And what's been amazing is the after the breakthrough. It's all for me, it's that moment, aha moment, but it's not just the aha moment, it's the expansion that happens afterwards.
Yeah.
There's been some really cool expansions since then. So thank you for also facilitating that and for giving the ability for so many people to be seen, and also for so many people to be able to work through fears that they didn't even necessarily realize that they had, and to be able to work through it in a nurturing and loving way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's actually fun, and I always expect that. I people think that it's gonna be like no issues, you know, but I always say, well, you know, our subconscious is really funny, and I've had those saboteurs myself, so I actually know because I've had to work through the witch wounds and the burn, you know, those fears of kind of sharing and being out there and being ostracized for that. And so I understand, like it took me like 6 years to be able to break through that witch wound, like of like intense pushing up against it, and taking workshops and getting on stage, and oh my goodness. And I understand it's like such a subconscious resistance, so I know that, you know, and so that's kind of like built into the process. We already know that that can come up. And so I always want the authors and poets to leave more empowered than when they started, so that they feel like, oh, I can take on this next project. I can do this. I can do that. It's, you know, more expansion than limitation. So yeah.
I definitely have felt that myself. And how do you envision the collaborative nature of Poems from the Heart, and how do you feel that it will help shape our collective right now and help our collective with what we're experiencing?
Well, I think it's just a nice reminder that we're all human, that we all have hearts, most of us do. And that you know, like we have this belief perhaps in society that everything's fine all the time, and like things are not always fine all the time, you know, and we just have to be a little bit more real about it, that I'm going through this and this is coming up, and it's not to sort of wallow for eternity in that, or to be angry forever about it. It's really about learning how to channel our emotions so that we're not being violent towards others. We can take that energy, because it's really energy, and use it as fuel. And when we can channel our emotions into art, whether it be like painting or poetry or writing a book or whatnot, something happens that's cathartic because we've actually internalized it. And so I think a lot of times we go through life very unconscious about what we're feeling, like what are we going through. And so when we stop and read a poem, that's funny, the light just turned off. When we stop and read a poem, that we can feel it in our heart. Somehow we resonate with it. There's also that validation. You know, I feel that way when I read poems that are like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm feeling. I feel so validated right now. And there's something really, really important about finding ways to work through, you know, challenging times, because I would say that in our world right now, it's a collective challenging time. And we're needing ways, and we're seeing like an uptick of more things that don't make me happy, you know, violence and people like really hurting each other, and it can feel a bit overwhelming for the empath, you know. And so how, if we feel like if we just keep looking outside and wallowing, it can feel really out of control. And so, you know, an artist, a poet, it's not that we're taking control, but we're channeling. We're taking back some power where we felt powerless. We can't stop something going on right now that doesn't feel right. You know, we want to. We pray about it, but we can also channel through our emotions. And there's something to be said about you know, kind of like us taking responsibility too for these emotions, because I think if we can collectively work through a lot of our own stuff, we may not manifest some of the other unnecessary dramas and traumas that are currently going on. So I just feel if we can, we should be, we really should, you know, channel into our art, channel into our poetry. That to me feels good. That feels like something we can do. We can do. As you always say that. What do you always say? It's really cute. What do you say? We can do this.
Yes, we can do this. We got this.
We got this. Yeah, we got this. So that's another way of like kind of taking some part of our power and our creative self and working through it, so that we don't feel like perpetual just victims to everything going on, because we can't necessarily just make everything just stop, even if we want to. I mean, we you know, we have to kind of work through it in the different ways we can, whether it be standing up and talking about it, or protesting, or writing poetry, or doing something that has a productive nature to it rather than destructive nature to it, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, we are all co-creating this world together. That's obvious, you know. So what can we take control of? What can we do in our lives that is going to make a difference for us and for others? And so, you know, I think there's this collective grief going on, and I don't think we actually talk about it enough. And we all feel it, because when something violent happens across the world, you know, we may not even know it's happening, but somehow we just feel it. We just feel it doesn't feel right, you know, it doesn't feel right. And so we can just go around feeling icky and all of these things, or we can process it somehow in a way that brings back joy, because actually everybody benefits when we vibrate with more joy or pride, or, you know, when we have those good feelings, it does make a difference. I think in the future we will understand that everybody's energy contributes to the whole, and we don't get that yet, but it does. And so if we can find ways to channel that is more healing for us and for others, hey, we're winning. You know, that's what I think.
So powerful. And I'm right there with you in that. And there's so much grief right now, and this book is here definitely to help bring a little bit more joy and those higher vibrational feelings and frequencies back into the world, and to bring that reminder. So thank you for giving the voices to so many around the world to be able to share that, and to be able to help just bring a little bit more love and joy back into the world.
Yes, to love and joy. Yes,
Mhm.
to love and joy.
And how do you feel that the Poems from the Heart book differs from the other collaborative books that you've done in the past that are more of a story and or chapter oriented format?
Yeah, so for the past books, we picked like a theme. So everybody would be on the same page for the theme. Like for energy healing and soul medicine, we had the theme of healing. you know, whether it be practitioners or people that have experienced incredible modalities, everything was about energy work. And so we would have those kind of guidelines to help people move forward. And in this particular project, you know, the theme is poetry and poems from the heart. And it really didn't matter if it was like which polarity. It's, you know what I mean? It could be whatever it is. So there was a lot of room for people to just share their poems and open that space up, because we weren't kind of, you know, pinning it to one thing. We only want you to have happy poems, you know. We wanted everybody to be right where they are, share what they want. And so yeah, it was, and that's what made it so interesting. And I think that's why it's a great read, because it's not just one thing, it's all kinds of things.
Mhm. Absolutely, exactly. And do you sorry, I just forgot my question. The dog scratching just threw off my face. She was like, squirrel. Um, oh, that was it. If you were to do another poetry book, how would you do it a little bit differently, or how would you structure it differently for yourself?
Well, um, you know, we had a chat about possibly doing an erotic poetry book, a sensual poetry book. I think I might bring in more music, and maybe some movement. And I think also just having some free time where we don't talk, you know, more free time of just kind of like writing and feeling and emotions, and with the music, right? Because music is an activator. So I think, and also with the movement, I just think it would be fun to kind of be a little bit more active, maybe do some more stretching and a little bit of dancing, and people being in their space in a place that they could feel kind of get more in touch with their bodies, basically, because it's more about sensuality. So it would just be a little bit different in the way that we do it, about connecting back into ourselves. And I've been thinking a lot about movement lately, and how I used to be like a belly dancer, and I really, that was such an amazing art and sensual, but it's very disciplined, you know. So there's something like, there's some structure about it, and it's like it's not as easy as it looks, you know. I had an incredible teacher, and she was always like, she would like stand on my toes and push me down and make sure that my knees are bent, like, you know, she was very, very like structured. But when we get into the structured flow, then things can really, there's so much freedom once we get that. So I like to have structured flow where we can get together, dance, feel our bodies, listen to music, have maybe a different theme. And I think it would just be fun and kind of healing for everybody.
Beautiful. I love that. And I love the option of bringing a little bit more movement in, because it brings, one of the biggest things as a yoga teacher that you learn is the asana part, which is the practice that many do, particularly in the Western world, which is the physical. The main reason for the asana part is to then be able to do the meditation after, is to get all of the energy out before you sit down and you focus inwards, which is
Yeah.
really, so that's similar to the structures of just different ideas that I've had too around creation, is how can we merge just the combination of the body, the mind, and the soul together so that everything works unified while the channeling happens. So I love it.
Like, as we're talking about it, I'm like, I'm really feeling this. Yes. Because I also feel that when I create, sometimes I feel like I'm also craving, you know? And so I'm definitely craving that. And that does bring the goddess element too, you know, with the movement and all of that. So I think we need to have more fun. For sure. Come on. We
Fun
need,
work
but
today.
yeah, yeah, fun, but also bring our creativity and some discipline. So the whole thing.
Love it. And from here, we're going to shift more into your own poetry that you have beautifully added into this book. And would you mind sharing a little glimpse around what the creative process was behind the pieces that you have submitted and that are published now?
Yes. So I actually didn't use any of the poems that I thought I would use because the poems that I have, they're like a bit more intense, you know. They like it really takes it up a level of intensity. So I felt that I should save it for my own book where I can kind of speak about it so it's not startling to people. Um and so I brought in some pieces that were just some that had a little intensity, but also more neutrality, nature. You know, like I weaved in, so I started my first poem was called Royalty, and it's actually about a past life, about a lot of drama in Egypt, and like you know, all that, you know, the past life stuff that kind of still haunts us, and the feelings that still echo into our lives. And they haven't quite cleared out, so you actually feel it still. You still feel that energy. And so I have a strong feeling about Egypt, and I've had so many visions of being there. And so that was really healing for me. And then I brought in, you know, a poem called Field of Dreams, where it's kind of like a fantasy that I had about a beloved, and kind of yeah, it was just kind of like a vision I saw on a field, and just a feeling of openness and love. And so that it was kind of fun and light. And then I feel like this big connection to like the galaxy and multidimensional aspects. And so I wrote a poem called The Galactic Rose. And I feel like I've traveled really throughout the universes and other past lifetimes. Like I feel like I have a feeling about this um universe. And so the love I have for this vastness. And then I wrote a poem called The Ancient Tree. And it's, you know, I have this thing about banyan trees. They're just so sacred. And there's something about them. They're so grounding. Like you were talking about earlier, the grounding, but also they're so beautiful the way that they just fall. And they're just so ancient. And I just have this feeling about banyan trees. And um so yeah, I mean, my poems are all over. I express some of my heartache about, you know, a sister, you know, that didn't get to show up and be my sister, and the grief and the sadness I felt about that. And then I talked about you know, the last one was In My Rise, where I talk about kind of like shattering, how we all go through a shattering in life. And sometimes we go through many shatterings, and then we feel like we have shards of us all over, and how we have to gather those pieces. And, you know, I'm a big believer in recreating ourselves and becoming a mosaic, which is even more lovely. And it's really strong. And you take those shattered pieces and you put them back together, and you make it even more wonderful than it was before. And so, yeah, so it talks about, you know, like we get hit a lot sometimes, and it depends what kind of life you have. But at least in my life, I felt like I've been attacked a lot energetically, you know. And so how do we recover from that, and bring ourselves back? um and you know, there's a lot of grief, in that too, but there's a lot of beauty. And I think, you know, one thing I want to say is like, you know, you never know how strong you are until you've been shattered, and you can put yourself all the way back together. Then you're like, I did that. Like I actually did that. And you realize that, wow, I guess I feel, it's not that we're indestructible, but it's something to do with the soul, you know, the soul. Because, you know, sometimes people shatter, and they don't try to put together themselves back together because they don't know how. But I want to remind people that you can, and you will. And it's so important to do so, because we all get hit we all get hit pretty hard sometimes, you know, in this life. it's not always just a part, walk in the park. So we have to learn to be resilient. And resilience is what makes us, at least in my eyes, we all go through so much, but we come out even better if we let ourselves. And so, yeah, it's just a poem about resilience.
I love that. And every single one of them, I can hear how whatever the topic was, there was some type of potentially pain or emotion with it that the poem helped you work through, either from the 3D perspective and or from a past life perspective. So thank you so much for sharing that insight. And 2 for 2 in having a background that aligns with what we're talking about.
Galactic realm right now.
I love it. And earlier and just now, we were talking a little bit about blocks and creative blocks. And would you mind sharing with our viewers how, when you experience a creative block, what are some things that help you work through it instead of going around it or going over it?
Oh yeah. I mean, though that happens, we all come to those places where we're like, oh, where do I go from here? But I think being in nature, that is like one of the number one things that helps me. We talked about that earlier about, ADHD and me autistic, and the brain works a little bit differently. And so I need kind of space. And I feel like if I give myself space or go into nature, um, something just happens where things just kind of get back into order, and those downloads come back again. So, finding my way, like I'm looking at a beautiful green forest, like really I have to be somewhere where I can see or feel nature, whether it's by the ocean or in the forest. And not everybody has that. Like some people live in urban cities, and they're really, and so it's like the pavement, and there's not much green, and that's hard, so I have a lot of compassion for that, because I think as humans we actually need more green. We need more green. To me, it's so essential. It really helps. It actually heals our mind, and it heals our heart too, because something about looking at the trees right now, it's like you can see the light, and just there's something magnificent about nature. It has that innate quality to heal us. It is the most amazing healer of all. And so for me, finding my way back into nature, also playing with my dogs, getting away, stop trying so hard, just get away and do something different. And I trust my intuition. I trust pretty strongly that I will have those downloads again. And there have been time where I haven't, where it was just kind of empty, and it scared me, like when I left LA and I got rid of all my things, and I was starting a new life in the forest, away from all the hustle and bustle and all of that stuff we get addicted to, because we get so addicted to stress and adrenaline, and most of us are living off of adrenaline, and it's part of our society, and I think it's hard, because I mean, in some ways I still have that, I still have those parts of me that are like, but also because of ADHD and autism, like I learned that sometimes I just have to stop, and I can't push sometimes. Like I have to stop and I have to be alone, because I can't be around too many people, because all the time, because their voices become really big in my subconscious, because we're so attuned to other people's voices and needs, that being alone actually is very helpful to me. Not saying I don't want a beloved, but somebody that obviously gives you space. So but you have to know yourself. You have to know your weird quirks, and that you're not going to be like everybody else. Like I think if we know ourselves, we can tell other people, or hey, this is how I kind of am. sometimes I go into my little zone. I need to have some air or freedom and to, so you kind of have to communicate those things too to people around you. And then it's so that's why it's really important to do the inner work so that we can express that and know. And I would have never known those things about myself. I didn't know that before, and I was always trying to put myself in situations with lots of people and lots of crowded situations, and I was wondering why things weren't really getting downloaded to me the way I needed. And then when I pulled my energy back from everybody and kind of, created my own little universe, then things flow really great. So knowing yourself is really important. Some people, they need to be with others in order to create. And that's why also things like the author incubator, where we can be with each other, but we're in our own space, so we can co-create. I really believe that's also valuable, co-creating. But sometimes, like, I really like the Zoom thing because I could be in my own space and breathe in my own room, an office, and then still be with others. So I think that's brilliant. You don't get drained like energetically the way you do if you're super sensitive, which I know you are too. Being in a room full of people, like, you feel people's imbalances and like all the things going on, and you're like so attuned to them energetically that it starts to drain you. And so, yeah, I think just holding that sacred boundary and having space to flow, that is what it's about.
I'm right there with you on everything that you said. Particularly in nature too. One of my big healers has been nature, and I've been on a healing journey for over a decade. And one of the biggest things that I also learned was same, like I considered myself over a decade ago to be an extrovert and was like downtown in the middle of cities, going to big parties, going to all different things. And then I kept having these burnouts and but I was like, oh, let's keep going, let's keep going. And then at some point your system, if you keep pushing, just goes, F you. I can't keep doing it. So taking that moment to really listen in, and what came through, which is something that I've also been working with a lot as you were talking, was when we know ourselves. And you mentioned at some point you are totally open to having a beloved, and same with me. And one of the big things that I've had to unlearn that we learn in our society is a lot of us are taught we need to find our other half, when in reality, we are wholes as ourselves. So in reality, it's not two halves that make a whole. It's two whole selves who know each other, who are in relationship with each other, who are then creating a third relationship that is a co-together relationship while still having their own individual relationships at the same time.
Yes, thank you, thank you. That's so important, and you'll never know that unless you take the time for yourself. Like, I know it's a little off topic, but like when, like jumping from relationship to relationship to relation, like I need, like if I get out of a relationship, like I really need to mourn. I need to go through the process. Like I have to feel, I need to be alone. I can't just like jump because I think, if you're not an energy vampire, you don't need to plug in your energy to somebody else because you're kind of self-sustaining. And it's not just us, it's like doing the things, being with the earth, mother nature, and those things, because we know how to plug back into that, to mother earth, and so that helps so much.
It does. At some point, we'll have a separate conversation about all of the awesomeness in the world. Oh. So before I ask you to share one of your poems, I have one last question on how was participating and leading this project for you, and how did you feel that it helped you individually? And then how do you feel like it helped your business as well in the growth throughout the process?
Great question. I believe every time we do a project, it does help me grow. Because I learn more working with people, like I think each time I think it gets better and better. I could say for sure the first time it might have been like really chaotic, you know what I mean? Because I'm just trying to figure it out. I've never done this before, but we're trying. And sometimes you have to throw yourself into things in life to learn. So I would say each time I really feel it does get better. And I feel like I also get more patient too, it's like something we learn, I've always been impatient, like my whole life. In some ways, I'm so patient. In others, I'm like, just do this, let's get it done. There's certain, so I'm really finding that balance too. It's like every project helps me grow as an individual, but also how I learn, like, okay, we like maybe we could do this better next time. So I'm trying to figure out how we could streamline things to make things smoother and make people more comfortable. So it's a learning process every time. There's nothing perfect. Like, I think it's experiential. Everything we do is experiential in this, with Radhaa Publishing House, except for projects that come in where they're like, we're done, we just need you to put it together for us, and those kinds of things. But when you're like having a relationship with people and it's interactive, it's like you're learning to dance with. And so we all get triggered. Like, that's just also part of the process. So I allow for others to get triggered, and sometimes I get a little triggered, but we always come back and find our center, right? So I think that's giving each other grace is like extremely important, because sometimes we get stressed with the deadlines or this or that. um so yeah, great. I think us all coming together with the understanding that we're co-creating, we're coming together as a team. Like, we're not, it's not like a hierarchy or anything like that. Like, we all want to win together, we all want to bring this forward, we're celebrating each other. It's not just about one person. All those things help to grow us. And I think how I feel is that it gives people the confidence too to go off and make their full book. And that's usually the case. And that happens a lot, where people are like, well, that felt good, now I can make my full book. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what we want. We're not trying to hold people down, we want them to fly. So yeah, so for me, it also helps. I think the process, it also helps me to feel more comfortable in my own work too, because we're all kind of workshopping it together. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, it's not a hierarchy. I'm not like, I know everything, because I certainly don't. I'm in here in the trenches with you we're moving stuff together. So that's what makes it interesting and fun too. And then I was surprised that, like, the poems that I wanted to bring in, I realized they weren't appropriate, for this project, because they were like really intense um and talking about things that are challenging. And I'm not saying that's not part of this book, but I felt like I got a vision for my poetry book, that I have to kind of give everything a little bit of a cushion so I can explain just a little bit. And so I always get so much out of it, even if sometimes if it can feel like a supernova, and it's at times it has felt that way, especially like the first time we did our go around. I was trying to get everybody to come in and to connect, and everybody's on their own universe. And so that could be very challenging. But then I realize that the ones that want that support come in, and I also realize that there's really independent writers who they've already written their stuff and they want to do it on their own, and they just want to bring it in, and so that's okay too. You know what I mean? So, like, respecting people's processes was very important. And so it's all fun, it's all joy, it's all growing. Like, nobody, I think what's great is that we all come out a little bit different afterwards. For me, at least, I feel it every single time. Every time there's something that shifts in me, something that awakens in me. And we're all growing from our art, and I think that's beautiful.
So beautiful. And just like we were talking about in our Pillars of Light interview, what came through was you're not here to make the wings for people. You're here to help paint the colors onto their wings while they're learning how to fly and helping them support when they're flying. So I love that.
Oh, I love that angel analogy. That's
So,
beautiful.
so would you be open to sharing and reading one of your poems for our viewers?
Okay, let's see. I will be open. It always feels funny when you read it out loud. You're like, oh, but I challenge the poets to do that. So I better challenge myself too. I got to show up the same way. Um, okay, so I'm going to share The Ancient Tree. In a forest, calm and old, stands a tree with stories told. Roots run deep, unseen below. Branches high where soft winds blow. Leaves like whispers in the night catch the moon's soft, gentle light. Bark is rugged, worn with age, making time like a sage. Through the years, seasons turn, lessons hide in every fern. Springs brings blossoms, fresh and bright. Summer days, warm and light. Autumn leaves in colors bold. Winter's chill, ice and cold. Yet the tree stands firm and tall, witness to the rise and fall. Generations come and pass, moments fleeting like blades of grass. Yet this tree, ancient and wise, watches under shifting skies. Oh, if it could tell its tale, we'd hear of storms and gentle hail, of whispers shared and secrets kept, of the many tears it's wept. But in its silence, it will stay, rooted firm, come what may, a sentinel, a guardian, free, an ancient, steadfast, knowing tree.
That was beautiful. Thank
Oh,
you so much for sharing that. There was so much that came through. Just it synced so beautifully with our conversation about nature before.
love it. I'm looking at trees right now, so I guess I have a tree obsession.
They are really fascinating. There's so much, just side note, there's so much that's cool about how trees grow and how they don't touch each other on purpose and how their root systems. So they're really, really powerful beings, and we have a lot to learn from trees.
I agree. I so agree.
Mhm. And how did that feel sharing that out loud?
It's the first time I read it out loud, so it was kind of fun. I mean, and I think it's cool to hear, the poems out loud. And so I did invite our poets to read their poems out loud, and it was an experience to read it out loud. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. It was really nice to hear too, like the different what's the word? Like the different tones and emphases that you added to it as well. Just gives it a little bit more light. So where can our viewers find you, and what exciting projects are you currently working on that you might want to share with our viewers?
Well, we have quite a few projects that are upcoming they're already we're working with some solo authors. So um we have probably 3 books that will be coming out, and I don't want to give them away. I kind of want to wait till they get closer to share them. Sometimes I feel like the energy spills if I share too much before. So it's been really wonderful. We're working with one of the authors, Deo, who is in this poetry book, and so he's in the Philippines, and he has a beautiful book on Maharlika. And we're working with Eros. He's brought to us his whole entire collection of books he's written his whole life. So we're nurturing his whole collection. And Maya she also has a solo book. And so those are really fun. They're very direct and, straightforward and kind of uncomplicated, in a certain sense. So those are really nice and neat to do. And I love like really focusing on one author's voices at a time too. And then, I'll probably be doing the goddess activations towards the end of the year, fall. And we may do a book with that. And in between that time, I'm kind of feeling the wave to see if there's space that we could bring forward that sensual poetry book, because I felt like there was some energy there, you know. And I've been dreaming about the cover. So when I start dreaming about the cover, it usually manifests, you know, like it takes time to kind of dream it into reality. And then so that would be very exciting. So if any of you kind of are interested in that poetry book that's kind of erotic and sensual, and we get to kind of express our longings and all of those beautiful feelings that we have as adults, then please reach out, because if we get, you know, I haven't even put it out there. So if we get some people that are interested, we might just commit to that, you know, and once we commit, it happens. So if you're feeling it anywhere, tinglies, and come join us. You know, that's kind of how I put the tester out. I just kind of put an idea out, and then if I start feeling some feedback, then we move forward with that. So that's how we are. We co-create with the energies of the authors. And if the energy's there, if you guys want to show up and be part of it, then we create the space. So that's exciting, and that's what's happening.
I love it. Well, I am 100% there for an erotic poetry book, and I can think of at least 2 people from this book who would totally be up for it as well. So you're
Exciting, yes.
those feelers.
Yeah, I am feeling it. I could feel it. There was like a lot of energy around it. So there's that excitement. So yeah, that could be next, you guys.
Totally here for it. Is there any last nuggets of knowledge that you would like to share with our viewers before we depart today?
Oh my goodness. Well, I just have this selenite heart that I didn't even know was on my desk. So you know what I want to do is I just want to send some love out to everybody watching. And, you know, I think we could all use that extra love right now. And I know that it feels good. Yeah, the selenite just feels so good. So just sending out so much love and blessings. And I know that everybody's been going through it in so many different ways. So I want to just send out love and compassion for you, and just remember your heart, because if we come back to our heart, that's where it all starts. And that is why we do what we do, because we love, right? We share love in the world, and my love language is creating projects, creating spaces, and I really do. I have a lot of love for all of you. And I thank you for being part of this journey, whether you are one of the poets, one of the authors, you know, one of the readers. Your presence means the world to me and to all of us. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for sharing the beautiful cleansing energy of the selenite. Thank you for giving so much to everybody who is a part of this book, and for sharing so much about the vulnerability of the back end too. Thank you for being the powerhouse that you are, and for receiving the download, which is half of the work, and then the rest of it is actually moving forward and having it come through and be birthed. So congratulations on having another beautiful book and your first poetry book be published. And it's been such an honor to be a part of this journey and to be a part of this book. And I can't say anything other than so much love and so many beautiful blessings for Radhaa's Publishing House. And I hope that everybody who gets a little tingle, just reach out to Radhaa and feel into how that feels and go from there. You can find Radhaa at Radhaa's Publishing on Facebook and on Instagram. And if you are curious about any of Radhaa's Publishing House's books, you can find them on Amazon. Some of them have a Kindle version, and quite a few of them also have a hard copy. And for Poems of the Heart, it is currently available on the Kindle, and it's going to be releasing on July 24th on the paperback, which I'm really excited about. So
Well, thank you so much. I want to just take a moment and say thank you, Kara, for being such a very important part of this project, and the way you've showed up. It's been like amazing. You know, I just want to thank you for your divine presence. it makes such a big difference. It means the world. And it just feels like, you know, that sisterhood community that we envision in creating. And thank you for stepping into that and into your divine leadership as well. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the space for that and for seeing me and for trusting me in it as well. So thank you. So much love all around. Amazing. Well, thank you so much again, Radha. And thank you to our viewers. We hope that you have an amazing rest of your day. Please listen to those little intuitive tingles and reach out. And remember that we have always got this.